Welcome to the Vietnamese Poetry, Literature channel. Today we will listen to the work, Evening 30, by author Thach Lam. Let's listen. Arriving at the door of room number 12, Lean moved the items to the left, lowered her chin to hold it tight, and turned the knob with her right hand. The paper packages were just about to fall. Lean called out hoarsely, "Oh Hugh! Hugh!" She thought she would see Hugh's happy face reaching out to greet her, grabbing the food and asking, "Why are you home so late?" But the room was still quiet. Lean opened the door and walked in. Hugh was sleeping on the bed wrapped in a blanket, her hair spread out on the white pillow. The coldness of the room immediately enveloped Lean, causing the fragile joy in her heart to fade away. Lean put the packages on the table, shook the rain dust off his shirt, and hurriedly woke up his friend. "Wake up, Hugh." Hugh hummed and opened her eyes to look blearily, then tried to turn her face back inside to sleep. Annoyed, Lean threw the blanket aside, lifted Hugh up and said, "Awful, sleeping all day without getting bored." Hugh was fully awake, stretched, yawned, then sat up, pulling the blanket over her shoulders. "What do you do when you say you can't sleep?" Then she shuddered. "So cold." "Look," she came in without closing the door. "Why did it take so long?" Lean went out and closed the door and went back in. "I have to rush around the streets. The stores are about to close. If only I listened to you, I wouldn't have time to buy or sell anything, so I'd have to starve to celebrate Tet." "Are you dead yet?" "Not eating or sleeping is fine." Lean noticed your tired expression. She looked around the dirty room. Under the dim light, there were familiar furniture, an old Hong Kong bed, bronze and rusty, a damp wooden table in the corner of the wall, two long-legged chairs. Lean thought about the loneliness of her life. Tet is here. Tet comes to visit her here, in this room as well as to warm, fragrant places. She didn't want to think about it anymore. The terrible sadness was just threatening to torment her, so Lean quickly laughed. She went to the table and opened the packages wrapped in diary paper and tied with a string, cheap food bought hastily from restaurants before closing time on the 30. "Come on, let's see what you bought." Hugh also got up and came to help Lean unpack the packages and put the food out. "This sausage, this banh chung, pork sausage, and even braised liver? Wow. What other package is this?" "Ah, oranges. Great. You must know this Cam." A few red oranges rolled onto the table. Hugh held a fruit to peel. Lean grabbed. "Monkey. Eat first? Just to worship." "Well, let's worship. But where is the fragrant gold?" Lean replied. "It's just the scent. Gold is not needed. Just a shop is fine." Hugh remained silent, suddenly thinking of the two sisters' wandering lives, and her heart softened. Hugh looked at you, lovingly. Now Lean is the only person close to her. Putting the wrapping paper aside, Lean turned and told Hugh. "Shall we make offerings?" "What the hell are you doing in such a hurry?" "What time is it?" "Don't know. It's easily almost 11 o'clock. It's okay to prepare." Hugh did not answer, went to the window, leaned her forehead against the glass and looked down at the street. The rain and dust were still flying, seemingly gathering in the darkness everywhere on this narrow street. On the wet and muddy sidewalk, not a single person passed by. The cold emptiness seems to be everywhere in the streets of Hanoi tonight. Hugh imagines cozy and well-lit houses, the door latches are tightly closed, everyone in the house is busy preparing to welcome the new year in the intimacy of family. Only her two sisters were far away from the door, far from home. But where else would she go home? Mother died, father went to get another wife, I don't know where. For 7 or 8 years now, she has not returned to the village. Any familiar people? Hugh thought about it and felt sorry for Lean, her cousin. Lean still has parents, but Lean does not dare to return. The two have lived a depraved life in Hanoi since they left home. Today, the last day of the year, the two reunited in this room, in a cold Tet celebration scene. Hugh closed her eyes. Because it looked rainy or because she was really crying? It seemed like there were a few tears welling up in her eyes. Hugh blinked softly and remembered her life, when she was a child, when she was a girl, in the countryside. One morning on the first day of Tet, she didn't remember exactly what year it was, but it must have been a long time ago. She stood on the steps wearing a new shirt and looked at the peach blossoms blooming in front of the garden. Why did she only remember that scene clearly? Hugh didn't know, she only vaguely felt something cool, fresh. Different from now. Hugh's soul was gloomy and heavy. Suddenly Hugh turned around in surprise. Lean patted her shoulder and smiled. What makes you think like that? Should have a little fun. It's almost New Year's Eve. Hugh followed Lean in and nodded. Well, let's worship. Have you finished preparing yet? On the dirty wash table, Lean placed a plate of citrus fruits, a bon chung, and plated it with gold. A few packages of sausages were also placed next to them. The poor offerings suddenly appeared before the two people's eyes. Hugh found the incense card. She turned back and asked Lean. Do you buy rice? Yes, here's rice. But what to pour into now? The two sisters looked around the room, thinking. Lean suddenly shouted. Pour it into this cup. Yes, very. She stopped silently. The image of uncleanness just entered her mind. The dirty cup in the corner of the wall, which even the guests of the village did not bother to use, she intended to use as an incense bowl to worship her ancestors. Lean lowered her face, then raised her eyes to look at Hugh. The two glanced at each other briefly. Lean knew that those thoughts had just come to your mind. Hugh spoke first, calmly as if nothing happened. Or put it on this bottle. No, it's fine to plug it into this wall, right? Lean did not dare to answer, but nodded. She went to the bedside and flipped the mattress over to get the matchbox. But she was startled and turned around. There was the sound of someone knocking on the door. Who is it? Please open the door for me. The two sisters frantically looked at the offerings on the table. The two wanted to clean it all up, but probably wouldn't have time. Quickly thinking, Hugh stood leaning against the table to hide it while Lean opened the door. The waiter peeked his head in. Uncle Tam. What are you asking? I sent you to keep the key. Are you going home now? The waiter, Sam, smiled. Yes, we have to go home for Tet. Well, please take care of the house. At this hour, no one comes anymore and I'm afraid. Lean saw behind him. Hugh's voice replied. No ghosts will come tonight. Please come back. The waiter was about to leave, then turned around. Oh, I almost forgot, I would like to congratulate you both in advance. Wishing you both a good new year. Well. The waiter hesitated, not knowing what else to say. Lean quickly responded, thanked her, then closed the door. After a while, the iron gate downstairs hissed in cold silence. Now there are only two sisters left in the house. The room suddenly became too spacious, a coldness penetrated the soul. It must still be raining outside, a sad and silent rain in the dark. In the room, the humidity increased. Lean and Hugh looked at everything around them. The cold iron bed, the dirty mattress and pillows, the rusty brass, the potty, and the rotted wooden wash table. That was the scene of a long ago debauched life. Hugh stood up and asked her friend to let her know. Dispel the silence. Have you burned incense yet? Lean also naturally calls Hugh sister. Not yet. You light it. The matchbox is next to the plate. The incense smoke rose straight up and emitted a fragrant scent, giving the two girls memories of their death anniversary days at home, when they were still pure and innocent girls. It's almost 12 o'clock, Lean, right? Maybe it's year. New Year. Hugh put the plates back on the table, arranging the gold neatly. She turned back and told Lean. Go pray. Lean approached the altar and stood still. How can I pray now? She suddenly hiccuped, shaking her shoulders, and then collapsed on the chair, covering her face with her hands. Hot tears filled her eyes, she couldn't hold them back. Lean felt an immense sadness fill her whole body, an infinite sadness. Her entire body flashed before her eyes, filled with youthful wishes and disappointments. Hugh looked at Lean and then gently approached, sadly patting her shoulder. Lean, why cry anymore? It's so sad. Her voice was also choked with emotion. Under your intimate hands, Lean sobbed even more. The two sisters feel so alone right now. Lean raised her face to look at Hugh, trying to force a wry smile. Are you crying too? Hugh collapsed on her friend's shoulder, not answering. Tears welled up and silently flowed down my cheeks. She wrapped her arms around Lean as tightly as possible. The sound of New Year's Eve fireworks suddenly rang out nearby and spread from house to house into the night. Lean said it would sound like a whisper. New Year Eve. Hugh did not answer. The two sisters nestled together, silent. At the end of the work, please support me with the like button and subscribe to the channel to listen to more works.